Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 1. The Man Everyone Feared. Rain had a cruel way of making the city feel haunted. It fell hard against the glowing windows of downtown towers, washed blood from alleyways, and turned expensive streets into mirrors that reflected secrets no one dared speak aloud. Lena Vale hated rain, because rain always seemed to arrive on the worst nights of her life. Tonight was no different. Her heels splashed through puddles as she hurried out of the publishing office building, clutching her coat tighter around herself. Her editor had delayed her for hours over revisions she barely cared about anymore, and now the city had emptied into darkness. Her phone vibrated. 3 missed calls. Unknown number. Again. Her stomach twisted. She ignored it. The last few weeks had felt strange. Eyes lingering too long. Men standing too still near cafes. The uneasy sensation of being watched. Maybe she was paranoid. Maybe exhaustion was finally eating her alive. Thunder cracked overhead. She turned down a quieter side street to avoid traffic. Mistake. The sound came first. A sharp voice. Then shouting. Then, a gunshot. Lena froze. Her breath stopped. Another shot echoed through the alley ahead. Panic struck hard and immediate. She turned to leave. Too late. A man staggered backward into view. Blood soaked through his shirt. Another man stood in front of him. Tall, still, terrifyingly calm. Black coat, black gloves, dark eyes that looked colder than the storm itself. He held the gun like it belonged there. Like violence belonged to him. The injured man collapsed. The taller one lowered his weapon slowly. And then, his eyes lifted, straight to her. Lena stopped breathing. The city disappeared. The rain disappeared. Everything disappeared. Except him. Those eyes. Unmoving. Calculating. Dangerous. She stumbled backward. Oh God. Run. 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 But her legs betrayed her. The man moved first. Not rushed. Not panicked. Measured. Certain. The kind of certainty that frightened people. The kind that buried bodies. He stepped closer. Rain slid down, dark hair brushed carelessly back from his forehead. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. His voice unsettled her more than the gun. Low, controlled, almost calm enough to be gentle. Her lips trembled. I didn't see anything. A lie, and they both knew it. Something unreadable crossed his face. Behind him, another black vehicle pulled up. Doors opened. Men stepped out. Silent. Watching. Waiting for him. Waiting for orders. Her pulse exploded. This was bad. No, this was deadly. The stranger looked at her for a long moment. Then sighed softly. Almost tired. Almost disappointed. Unfortunately, he said, stepping closer, that makes things complicated. Lena backed into cold brick. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. He stood impossibly close now. Too close. She should have screamed. Should have run. But fear rooted her in place. Rain traced slowly down the sharp line of his jaw. He smelled faintly of smoke, expensive cologne, and danger. Strangely, something about him felt devastatingly sad. Like exhaustion lived inside him. Like violence had carved itself into his bones. His gaze lowered briefly, her shaking hands, then lifted again. You're freezing. The statement startled her. What? He removed his coat. Before she could protest, warm fabric settled around trembling shoulders. Lena stared at him, confused, terrified. Why was the terrifying man being kind? One of the men behind him cleared his throat. Sir. The stranger didn't look away from her. She saw too much. Cold dread rushed through Lena again. Right. This was reality. Not kindness. Not safety. Her voice cracked. Please. Something changed in his expression. Something dangerous. Something conflicted. Then he spoke quietly. Get in the car. What? You can get in willingly, he said, voice calm enough to terrify her, or my men can help. A beat. Then, softer, barely above the rain. I'd prefer the first option. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 2. The Devil with Gentle Hands. Lena should have screamed, should have fought, should have run into the rain and risked whatever nightmare waited beyond the alley. Instead, she got into the car. Because terror had a strange way of sounding reasonable. The back door shut behind her with a heavy click. Locked. Of course. Warm air wrapped around her immediately, fogging the edges of her panic. The interior smelled expensive. Dark leather, cedarwood, rain. Across from her sat Silence. And beside her, eventually, him. He entered without hurry, removing black gloves one finger at a time as the city blurred beyond rain-streaked windows. The door shut. The vehicle moved. Nobody spoke. Lena's pulse pounded so loudly she wondered if everyone could hear it. She stared straight ahead. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Your name. She startled. His voice was calm again. Too calm. Lena. He nodded once. Lena. The way he said it unsettled her. Measured. Careful. As though memorizing it. And yours. She whispered before common sense could stop her. A brief silence. Then, Adrian. Only Adrian. No explanation. No warmth. Just a name wrapped in danger. Outside, headlights smeared gold across wet pavement. Inside, the air felt unbearably close. Lena dared another glance. Big mistake. He was already watching her. Dark eyes steady, unreadable, not hungry, not cruel exactly, something worse. Controlled, like a storm holding itself together by force. You think I'm going to kill you, he said quietly. Her throat tightened. Aren't you? A corner of his mouth shifted. Not quite amusement, not quite sadness. If I plan to, he said, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That did not comfort her. At all. Her hands trembled harder. Without warning, Adrian leaned slightly forward. Lena stiffened, but instead of touching her, he reached past, adjusted the heating vent toward her. You're shaking. His tone stayed frustratingly matter-of-fact. As though kidnapping frightened women in thunderstorms was completely ordinary. She stared, confused again. You're being nice. The words slipped out. For the first time, something flickered across his face. Tiredness. Real, bone-deep tiredness. You witnessed something ugly, he said after a moment. Fear is unpleasant enough without freezing. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, silence stretched. Then, his phone buzzed. One glance at the screen shifted something in him immediately. The softness vanished. His expression hardened into something cold enough to stop breathing. Yes, he answered. A pause. His jaw tightened. No, longer silence. Then, if he moved money behind my back, I want names. The temperature in the car seemed to drop. Lena looked away quickly. Something about the quiet fury in his voice felt terrifying. Deadly. When the call ended, he rubbed tired fingers briefly against his temple. For a second, just a second, he looked exhausted. Not powerful, not untouchable, simply tired, like carrying too much darkness. The car slowed. Large iron gates opened ahead. Her stomach dropped. An estate emerged through mist and rain. Massive, beautiful, terrifying, the kind of place secrets went to hide. No, Lena whispered. No, no, no. Her breathing sped up. Adrian looked at her. Something almost sympathetic crossed his face. You're safe here. She laughed once. Sharp, fearful. You kidnapped me. That, he replied evenly, depends on perspective. The car stopped. Before panic could fully consume her, Adrian stepped out. Rain hit instantly. Then, unexpectedly, he turned back, extended a hand toward her. Not forceful, not impatient, simply waiting. Lena stared at it, at him, at the impossible contradiction standing in front of her. A dangerous man, rain-darkened hair, blood somewhere on his clothes, eyes capable of terrible things. And somehow, an expression so quietly patient it made her chest ache. You'll catch cold, he said softly. I promise no one touches you here. Something in the way he said it felt like law, like threat, like protection, and somehow, that frightened her most of all.
Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 3, A House Built for Ghosts. The mansion felt alive, not warm, not welcoming, alive in the way abandoned churches felt alive, like something watched from the shadows. Lena stood frozen beneath towering ceilings while rain whispered against enormous windows. Marble floors reflected soft amber light, and portraits of unsmiling strangers stared down from dark walls. Everything looked expensive, untouchable, Cold, a prison disguised as luxury. Behind her, the front doors shut with a deep echo. Too final. Her stomach twisted. Adrian removed his coat from her shoulders carefully. You'll be staying upstairs. Her eyes widened. Staying. He looked at her evenly. You witnessed something dangerous. That doesn't explain kidnapping. No, he said quietly. It explains survival. The words landed harder than she wanted them to. He moved through the hall, every step calm and controlled. People noticed him immediately. Men standing near doorways straightened. Staff lowered their eyes. Nobody smiled. Nobody questioned. Fear moved through this house like invisible smoke. Adrian noticed her hesitation and slowed. You haven't eaten. She blinked. What? You haven't eaten? How did he know that? Her voice faltered. How would you know? You keep pressing your hand against your stomach. Matter of fact. Observant. Infuriating. Terrifying. He noticed too much. A woman appeared silently from another hallway. Older. Elegant. Sharp-eyed. Tea, Adrian said simply. And food. The woman nodded once, then glanced toward Lena with surprising softness. Of course. Lena waited until the woman disappeared before whispering. Do people ever tell you that you're strange? Something almost invisible shifted at the corner of his mouth. Frequently. The answer startled a breathless laugh out of her before she could stop herself. Silence followed. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and something unreadable crossed his face. Like he'd forgotten what laughter sounded like. The moment disappeared too quickly. This way. He led her upstairs. The hallway stretched endlessly, lit by warm lamps that somehow failed to make anything comforting. Thunder murmured outside. Finally, he opened a door. Her breath caught. The room was beautiful. Massive windows. Dark velvet curtains. Bookshelves. A fireplace crackling softly. Fresh clothes folded neatly across the bed. You prepared this? She asked suspiciously. No, he paused. But I suspected complications tonight. That sentence somehow frightened her more. Complications. As though witnessing violence had become an ordinary scheduling issue. She turned sharply. You still haven't explained anything. For the first time all night. He hesitated. Just briefly. Then, my family business attracts enemies. That sounds like a polite way of saying mafia. Silence. A dangerous silence. Adrian stepped closer. Not threatening, but close enough that she noticed the tired shadows beneath his eyes. You're observant. Her pulse stumbled. He wasn't denying it. Oh my God. You are not in danger from me, he said quietly. The words should have reassured her. Instead, they terrified her. Because he hadn't said safe. Only safe from him. Her voice trembled. Then what am I in danger from? Something cold entered his expression. Something heavy. Old. The people who now know you saw something. A knock interrupted them. The older woman returned with tea, soup, bread, and something warm that smelled comforting enough to hurt. The room softened briefly. Adrian stood aside while the tray was set down. You should eat, he said. Lena crossed her arms. I'm not hungry. A lie. A very obvious lie. His eyes narrowed slightly. You're stubborn. You kidnapped me. Fair. Again, that impossible hint of almost humor. As if somewhere beneath the storm, someone quieter existed. Someone buried. The older woman finally left. Silence settled again. Lena sat cautiously near the fireplace, too exhausted to keep standing. After a moment, Adrian moved toward the door. Relief rushed through her, then paused when he stopped. Without turning around, he said quietly. The lock works from the inside. She frowned. What? You can lock it. Now he looked at her. Something weary moved through his expression. No one enters unless you allow it. The words landed strangely, heavy, protective, as if this mattered to him. As if she mattered, which made no sense. At all. His hand rested briefly against the doorframe. Then, softer. You looked terrified in the car. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. I was terrified. Something flickered in his face. Regret. Pain. Gone too fast to understand. I know. A pause. Long. Quiet. Then, for what it's worth, he said, voice lower now, almost careful, I'm trying not to make tonight worse. And for some reason, that nearly broke her heart. Because for the first time, the terrifying man looked lonely. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 4, The Sound of Breaking. Sleep never came. Lena tried. She really did. But the room felt too unfamiliar. Too quiet. Too expensive. Too dangerous. The fireplace crackled softly while rain continued tapping against the windows like restless fingers. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made her sit upright. The tea had gone cold beside her. Her thoughts had not. Mafia. The word replayed endlessly. Mafia. Kidnapped by a dangerous man with tired eyes and strangely careful hands. A dangerous man who noticed when she was cold. Who spoke softly while terrifying entire rooms. Who somehow looked lonelier than anyone she had ever met. None of it made sense. None of it should have mattered. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about him. That alone felt dangerous. A sound snapped her from thought. Voices. Low, sharp, somewhere down the hall. Then, a crash. Lena jumped. Another voice rose. Angrier now. A door slammed hard enough to shake the silence. Her pulse climbed instantly. Don't go looking. Don't. Obviously, she went looking. The hallway outside stretched dim and quiet beneath warm lights. Voices drifted faintly from downstairs. Harsh, tense. She hesitated at the staircase. Then heard it. Adrian. Not calm. Not controlled. Furious. You lied to me. The quiet menace in his voice made her stop breathing. Below, in a dark sitting room, several men stood rigid. One older man looked pale. Terrified. Adrian stood near the fireplace. Still, cold, his composure somehow more frightening than shouting. You moved money behind my back, Adrian said evenly. Then sold information. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The older man stammered something. Excuses. Pleading. Adrian stepped closer. Slow. Measured. The room shifted around him. Fear followed. You endangered my people. Quiet. Deadly quiet. And now, Adrian continued softly, someone innocent is involved. Lena froze. Someone innocent. Her. Something dark moved through Adrian's expression. Not cruelty. Pain. Anger wrapped around disappointment. You disappoint me, he said. The sentence somehow landed harder than screaming. The older man visibly trembled. Then, without warning, something shattered. Adrian swept a crystal glass off the nearby table. It exploded against stone. The room flinched. Lena did too. For the first time, he looked exhausted by rage. As though anger cost him something. As though carrying power felt unbearable. He dragged one hand through damp hair, jaw tight. Then suddenly, his eyes lifted. Straight to the staircase. Straight to her. Silence crashed down. Everyone turned. Lena's stomach dropped. Oh no. Oh, this was bad. Very bad. For one endless second, nobody moved. Then Adrian exhaled. Long, tired, and somehow looked worried. Not angry. Worried. He spoke quietly. Lena. Her name in his voice startled her. Careful. Almost gentle again. You shouldn't be awake. She swallowed hard. I heard shouting. The men exchanged uncomfortable looks. Nobody seemed to know what to do with her existence. Adrian looked briefly toward them. Something cold returned immediately. Leave. No hesitation. No argument. The room emptied in seconds. Power moved around him effortlessly. And suddenly, it was only the two of them. Silence settled heavily. Rain whispered outside. Lena stood frozen halfway down the stairs. He stood below. Dark shirt slightly undone at the collar. Hair messy now. Tension carved into every line of him. For the first time, he looked human. Tired. Frayed at the edges. You should sleep, he said finally. You looked angry. A humorless breath escaped him. I was. The honesty surprised her. Carefully, she descended another step. You scared me. Something shifted in his face immediately. Not irritation. Regret. His gaze dropped briefly. That wasn't for you. The answer came quietly. Too quietly. As though he hated the possibility of frightening her. Lena frowned. You keep saying things like that. His brow furrowed slightly. Like what? Like I matter. The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence. Dangerous silence. But not in the way she expected. Something unreadable crossed Adrian's face. Heavy. Complicated. He looked away first. Toward rain-streaked windows. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded rougher. You shouldn't. Shouldn't what? He hesitated. Then met her eyes again. Get used to me being kind. The sentence landed strangely. Like warning. Like sadness. Like someone trying very hard not to become something dangerous to another person. Thunder rolled softly. Lena suddenly noticed something. His hand. Blood. Fresh. You're hurt. He glanced down. Dismissive. It's nothing. It's bleeding. He looked tired enough to surrender. Glass. For a second, neither moved. Then, before fear or logic could stop her, Lena stepped closer. Sit down. Adrian blinked once, clearly unaccustomed to being told what to do. The silence stretched. Then unexpectedly, he listened. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 5, The Things Left Unsaid. Adrian sat stiffly at the edge of the leather chair like surrender offended him. Lena stood awkwardly in front of him holding a small first aid kit she had found in the bathroom. The mansion had supplied everything. Bandages, medicine, perfectly folded towels. Apparently even kidnappings here came with luxury. Rain continued whispering against tall windows while silence stretched between them. Adrian watched her carefully. Not cold now. Just unreadable. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. You're bleeding onto expensive furniture. A pause. Something faint shifted at the corner of his mouth. Not quite amusement, but close. You noticed. I'm observant, she replied. His expression flickered. You are. The words settled strangely. Heavy. Intentional. Lena crouched carefully beside him. Her pulse immediately betrayed her. Too close. Far too close. He smelled like rain and cedarwood and smoke. Danger wrapped in calm. And underneath, exhaustion. She reached for his hand. Stopped. Looked up. Can I? Something changed in his expression. Tiny. Almost invisible. Surprise. As though permission was unfamiliar territory. He gave one quiet nod. Her fingers brushed his palm carefully. Warm. Calloused. Steady. A small cut crossed the side of his hand where shattered glass had bitten deep. Not terrible, but enough. You really weren't going to clean this. It'll survive. That isn't the point. She reached for antiseptic. His jaw tightened instantly. You hate pain? She asked before thinking. No. The answer came too fast. Then slower. I dislike inconvenience. She almost laughed. Right. Silence settled again. Closer this time. Softer. The kind that felt strangely private. She worked carefully. Gentle. Unexpectedly aware of every breath. Every flicker of his expression. Every second of his attention fixed entirely on her. It felt dangerous. Not frightening. Dangerous in another way. The kind that slipped under skin quietly. You trust people too easily, Adrian said suddenly. Lena frowned. You kidnapped me. Exactly. Her hands paused. He continued quietly. You should hate me. Something heavy sat beneath the words. Something tired. As though he expected cruelty from himself. Expected fear. Expected rejection. Lena wrapped fresh bandage carefully around his hand. You confuse me. For the first time all night. He looked honest. You confuse me too. The admission hung there. Unexpected. Real. Thunder rolled faintly overhead. Neither moved. Neither seemed entirely aware of how close they'd drifted. Lena finally noticed. The space between them had disappeared. His gaze dropped briefly. Her face. Her hands. Then returned upward immediately. Controlled. Always controlled. But something restless moved beneath it. Something carefully restrained. He leaned back first. Distance. Breathing room. As though reminding himself of invisible rules. You should sleep. Again. Always sending her away. Protecting distance. Protecting himself. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. You say that a lot. His gaze shifted toward the dark window. You need rest. That's not what I meant. Silence. Long. Quiet. Then, softer than before. People close to me tend to get hurt. There it was. The sadness she'd sensed. Not imagined. Real. Old. Carved deep. Lena swallowed. That sounds lonely. The words escaped before she could stop them. Adrian looked at her. Really looked. And for one unguarded second. Something vulnerable flickered there. Gone immediately. But real. Lonely, he repeated quietly, like testing a word he disliked. Then, stood. Too quickly. Distance again. Armor again. He adjusted his cuff with unnecessary focus. You'll stay near me tomorrow. Her brows lifted. Excuse me. There's movement outside my organization. Coldness returned to his voice. Controlled. Professional. You're safer where I can see you. The phrasing unsettled her. Not ownership. Not command. Something worse. Concern. Before she could answer, a sharp sound echoed from downstairs. A crash. Voices. Urgent now. Adrian turned instantly. Everything changed. The softness disappeared. His posture hardened. Danger stepped back into place. A knock sounded against the door. Hard. Urgent. A man's strained voice came through. Sir. Silence. Then, they breached the east gate. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 6, When Walls Start Falling. The mansion didn't feel safe anymore. Not even slightly. The words they breached the east gate hung in the air like smoke that refused to clear. Adrian moved first. Always first. Lock every internal passage, he ordered sharply. The man at the door nodded and vanished instantly down the corridor. Footsteps erupted below. Fast. Controlled chaos. Not panic. Training. Lena stood frozen. What's happening? She asked. Adrian didn't look at her immediately. His focus was already shifting outward, calculating threats she couldn't see. Someone found this location, he said. That wasn't supposed to happen tonight. That's not reassuring. A faint exhale, almost humorless. I wasn't trying to reassure you. That was fair. He stepped closer, not to touch her, but to position himself between her and the hallway instinctively. Like it was automatic, like it had always been automatic. That realization hit her harder than the noise downstairs. You stay here, he said firmly. Lena frowned immediately. Absolutely not. His eyes snapped to hers. Cold again. Lena. Her name now carried weight. Warning. She didn't flinch. I'm not hiding in a room while armed people are running around your house. Something flickered across his face. Frustration. And something else underneath. Reluctance. You will do exactly that, he said quietly, because you don't understand what's coming through that gate. Another crash echoed below. Closer. Louder. The walls felt thinner suddenly. Lena's pulse spiked. Adrian's phone vibrated once. He looked at it. His jaw tightened. Then something changed in him. A shift so subtle it was almost invisible, but everything about the room followed it. Cold certainty. Stay behind me, he said. That is not. He turned fully now, voice lower. Final. Behind me. And something in that tone made her stop arguing. Not fear. Something deeper. Trust she didn't want to feel yet. Footsteps thundered up the staircase. 3 men appeared at the far end of the corridor. Not his. She knew immediately. Too aggressive. Too fast. One of them raised a weapon. Everything happened at once. Adrian moved. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Precise. He grabbed Lena's wrist and pulled her behind him as he stepped sideways into the hall's shadow line. A shot rang out. Wood exploded beside them. Lena gasped. Her back hit the wall. Adrian didn't even flinch. Stay down, he said sharply. Then he moved. The next moments were a blur of sound and motion. Sharp commands, impact, another shot, someone hitting the floor hard enough to shake the silence. Lena couldn't breathe properly. She saw enough. Too much. But not everything. Because Adrian moved like something trained for darkness. Not reckless. Controlled violence. Protective violence. And every time someone came too close, he stopped them. Fast. Final. A second later, silence returned. Heavy. Broken. Lena stayed pressed against the wall, shaking. Adrian stood a few feet away now. Breathing controlled. Eyes scanning. Checking for more threats. Then, he turned back to her. And for the first time since she'd met him, something in his expression broke slightly. Not weakness. Concern. Real concern. You're hurt. The question came instantly. She blinked. What? No. He stepped closer fast, scanning her face, hands hovering like he wanted to check but wasn't sure if he was allowed. You're pale. I just saw a gunfight in a hallway. A pause. Then, something like relief flickered in him. You're shaking. That's normal. A beat. Then unexpectedly. Good. She stared at him. What do you mean good? His gaze softened. Slightly. Just slightly. It means you're still here. The words landed strangely. Not logical. Not detached. Human. Lena swallowed. Below them, more movement echoed faintly. But for a moment, the world narrowed. Just the two of them. Chaos outside. Stillness between them. You shouldn't have been here, Adrian said quietly. Lena laughed once, shaky, disbelieving. You kidnapped me. A faint pause. Then, yes. Honest. No defense. No denial. Just acceptance. That honesty unsettled her more than anything else tonight. Another silence. Then Lena surprised even herself. You didn't have to pull me behind you. Adrian looked at her. Something unreadable crossed his face. You were in the line of fire. That's not what I mean. A longer pause now. The noise downstairs faded slightly as reinforcements took control. But neither moved. What do you mean? He asked quietly. Lena hesitated. Her voice came softer. You could have let me figure it out myself. Something shifted. A fraction. Almost invisible. And let you get killed. He said. No. A breath. I mean, you didn't hesitate. That landed differently. His expression tightened slightly. As if he didn't want to hear it. As if it meant something he wasn't prepared to admit. I don't make unnecessary decisions, he said finally. But it didn't sound like the truth. Not fully. A loud voice echoed from downstairs. Area secured. The tension in Adrian's shoulders didn't fully release. Not yet. But the immediate threat was gone. He exhaled slowly, then looked at her again. Longer this time. More quietly. You should rest, he said. Again. Always that. But this time, it didn't feel like dismissal. It felt like care he didn't know how to say properly. Lena nodded slowly, then surprised him. You were worried. His eyes narrowed slightly. I was assessing risk. That's not what I asked. Silence. Long. Heavy. Finally, Adrian looked away first. Go to your room, he said quietly. But his voice wasn't as firm anymore. Not quite. And for the first time, Lena realized something terrifying. The most dangerous man she had ever met was starting to treat her like something worth protecting. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 7, After the Fire. The mansion was quieter after the breach. Not peaceful, just controlled again, like a storm that had temporarily retreated but hadn't left. Lena didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint glow of the fireplace she hadn't bothered to relight. Every sound now felt sharper than before, every distant step in the hall, every shift of wind against glass. Her body still hadn't stopped shaking. Not from fear alone, from everything. Adrian, the way he moved without hesitation. The way he pulled her behind him like it was instinct, not choice. The way he looked at her afterward. Like she mattered in a world where people like him weren't supposed to let anyone matter. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Soft, not urgent. She hesitated. Who is it? She called carefully. A pause. Then, Adrian. Her breath caught immediately. Of course. She stood slowly, unlocked the door, opened it just slightly. He stood in the dim hallway, sleeves rolled up now, tie loosened, tension still carved into his posture. He looked like someone who had not fully left the battlefield in his mind. You're not asleep, he said. That's observant of you. A faint pause. Something almost like amusement. Almost. I checked the perimeter twice, he added. Okay. Another silence. Neither moved away from the doorway. It felt intentional. Too narrow. Too close. You should have told me before bringing me into a war zone, Lena said quietly. His jaw tightened slightly. It wasn't supposed to become one. That's not comforting. I wasn't aiming for comfort. Of course he wasn't. A beat passed. Then unexpectedly, you did well tonight, he said. Lena blinked. I did. What? You stayed calm. A humorless breath left her. I was not calm. You didn't freeze completely. That's your standard. Something shifted in his gaze. Not judgment. Something more careful. You adapted, he said. That word felt heavier than it should have. Like it meant something in his world. Something rare. Silence stretched again. Then Lena crossed her arms. You didn't have to protect me like that. Adrian's eyes lifted slightly. There it was again. That phrase. That's the second time you've said that, he replied quietly. Because it's true. A pause. Then softer. It's not your responsibility. His expression changed slightly at that. Something restrained tightening behind his eyes. If I hadn't, he said slowly, you would have been hurt. That's not what I mean. He studied her, waiting. Lena hesitated. Her voice dropped. You chose me. The words hung between them. Still, heavy. Adrian didn't answer immediately. That alone felt like an answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. I moved you out of the line of fire. That's not what I said. Another silence. This one different, thicker. Adrian's gaze dropped briefly to the floor, like he was choosing restraint over truth. When he looked back up, something was different, softer, more exposed. I don't usually hesitate, he said. Lena's chest tightened. That's not an answer. A faint breath, almost tired. You make it complicated, he admitted. Her heart stumbled. Me, yes. No hesitation this time, just honesty. And it unsettled her more than anything else he had said. Because it wasn't tactical, wasn't strategic, it was personal. A distant door opened somewhere downstairs. Voices echoed faintly, but neither of them moved. The hallway between them felt too small now. Adrian stepped slightly closer, not invading, not touching, just closer. You should sleep, he said again. But this time, his voice softened at the edges. Like, it wasn't an order anymore. Like it was concern he couldn't fully hide. Lena didn't move. You keep saying that. A faint pause. Then, because I don't know what else to say to you. That honesty hit differently. It stayed. Lena looked at him properly now. Really looked. The man feared by everyone. The man who ordered silence with a glance. The man who had just walked through violence like it was routine. And yet, standing here, outside her door, he looked like someone trying very hard not to become something worse. Her voice softened. You don't have to be careful with me. His eyes narrowed slightly. That's a lie, he said immediately. She frowned. It's not. It is, he said quietly. Because if I stop being careful. He stopped. Just stopped. Like the rest of the sentence wasn't safe to say. Lena's breath slowed. What happens? Silence. Longer this time. Then Adrian looked away, jaw tight, voice lower than before. Go inside. Not harsh, not cold, but controlled again, carefully controlled, and that control told her everything he refused to say out loud. Because whatever was building between them, it wasn't safe for either of them anymore. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 8, The Lie Beneath Safety. Morning in the mansion didn't feel like morning. It felt like waiting. Lena woke with a strange heaviness of interrupted sleep, like her mind had never fully surrendered to rest. The memory of Adrian standing outside her door lingered more than the nightmares she couldn't quite remember. She got up anyway. The house was quieter now. Cleaner, almost too controlled, as if the chaos from last night had been scrubbed out and buried under polished marble again. Downstairs, voices were low. Not panicked, organized. Lena followed them cautiously. She found Adrian in the main study. He was standing near a large table covered in documents, maps, and black folders. His sleeves were rolled up again, hair slightly disheveled, eyes fixed on something she couldn't see. Two men stood nearby, waiting for instructions. When he noticed her, the entire room subtly changed. Not fear, adjustment, like everyone recalculated reality around her presence. You shouldn't be down here, Adrian said immediately. I keep hearing that, Lena replied. One of the men glanced at her, then quickly looked away. Adrian raised a hand slightly. Dismissal. They left without a word. Silence filled the room. Lena stepped closer slowly. You've been busy. Yes. That was all. Always efficient. Always closed off. She looked at the table. Maps of districts. Names marked in ink. Red circles. Crossed out lines. Her stomach tightened. This is about last night, she said quietly. It is. Are they coming back? A pause. Then Adrian spoke carefully. They were never supposed to get in. That didn't answer her question. It made it worse. Lena frowned. You're not telling me something. His jaw tightened slightly. I am telling you what you need to know. That's not how conversations work. A faint exhale. Something almost tired again. Not in my world. Silence stretched. Then Lena stepped closer to the table. Then tell me how your world works. Adrian looked at her. Long. Carefully. Like measuring risk. Like deciding how much truth she could survive. Finally. There are factions, he said. Some loyal. Some not. Last night wasn't random. No. Her stomach dropped slightly. So someone inside. Yes. The word was immediate. Final. Betrayal. It hung in the air like a blade left unsheathed. Lena's voice lowered. Inside your people. Adrian didn't respond right away. That was answer enough. She swallowed. You don't seem surprised. A flicker in his expression. I am not surprised, he admitted. That unsettled her more. How long have you known? Long enough. The vagueness frustrated her. You talk like everything is normal, she said sharply. Like people trying to kill you is just, what, Tuesday? A faint pause. Then, quietly, it is not uncommon. That made her go still. Adrian watched her reaction carefully. Like he was used to people reacting. Used to fear. Used to distance. But something in him shifted slightly when she didn't step back. Instead, she asked, and me? Silence. Instant. Heavy. The room felt colder. Lena's voice softened, but didn't break. Am I part of this now? Adrian's gaze held hers. Longer than before. Something unreadable passed through his eyes again. Conflict. Control. Something more dangerous beneath both. No, he said. Too fast. Too final. But it didn't feel like truth. Lena narrowed her eyes slightly. That was quick. A faint tension tightened in his jaw. You are not involved. But I am here. A pause. Then Adrian stepped closer. Just slightly. Enough that the air between them changed. You are here because I brought you here, he said. Quietly. Not defensively. Not coldly. Something more complicated. Responsibility. Choice. Burden. Lena studied him. You keep saying I'm not involved, she whispered. But you're the one keeping me here. Something shifted in his expression again. Something almost pained. I am keeping you alive. The words landed heavier than intended. Silence followed. Then, Lena surprised him again. I didn't ask you to. That hit differently. A crack. Small. But real. Adrian looked away first. Just briefly. When he looked back, his voice was quieter. You didn't have to. The tension between them thickened. Not hostile. Not calm. Something in between. Dangerously close. A distant phone rang somewhere in the house. Neither moved. Lena took a breath. So what happens now? Adrian hesitated. Just once. Then, we find the source. And me. A pause. Longer this time. Then, softer than everything he had said so far. You stay where I can see you. Lena frowned slightly. That sounds less like protection and more like surveillance. A faint flicker at the corner of his mouth. Not amusement. Something restrained. You are learning my world quickly. She should have been afraid. Maybe she was. But underneath it, something else was growing. Something dangerous in a different way. Because Adrian wasn't just protecting her. He was watching her like she was becoming something he didn't know how to stop needing. And that realization was more dangerous than the Mafia outside. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 9, When Trust Starts to Rot. The message arrived just before sunset. Quiet, unassuming, delivered on a black tablet one of Adrian's men placed on the study table with a tension that said everything without words. Adrian didn't touch it immediately. He just stared at it. Lena noticed. That alone was enough to make her stomach tighten. What is it? She asked. No answer. The room felt colder again. Finally, Adrian picked it up. One swipe. 1 second of silence. Then, something in his expression changed. Not dramatically, not outwardly, but inside him, something snapped into focus. Cold, sharp, dangerously still. He handed the tablet to her. Read. Lena hesitated, then took it. The screen showed surveillance footage. Black and white. A corridor inside the mansion. Her breath caught. She recognized it. East Wing. Restricted access. A man walked through it. One of Adrian's own. He opened a secured door. Stepped inside. And spoke into a phone. Audio cut in. He trusts you more than expected. She's in the house. Lena went cold. The man continued. Adrian won't see it coming. She's leverage. The footage ended abruptly. Her hands went numb. No, she whispered. Her voice didn't feel real. That's not. This can't be. She looked up at Adrian. He was already watching her. Completely still, but something dangerous was rising behind his eyes. You said inside your people, she said shakily. You meant, this guy? Yes. Simple. Final. Lena's throat tightened. So I was right in the middle of it anyway. A pause. Adrian didn't deny it. That silence was confirmation enough. Her chest tightened painfully. You brought me here, she said, voice breaking slightly now, and someone inside your organization is using me as bait. A flicker in his expression. Not defensiveness. Something worse. Control barely holding. Yes. One word. Too calm. Too restrained. Lena stepped back instinctively. I'm not. This is insane. Adrian moved immediately. Not fast, but enough to close the distance. Not touching her. Just blocking the space behind her like a wall forming in real time. You're safe here, he said. Her laugh was sharp. You keep saying that, and it remains true. That man just said I'm leverage. His jaw tightened. He is wrong, is he? Silence. Longer this time, the kind that felt like pressure building behind glass. Adrian exhaled slowly. Then, something shifted. His voice dropped lower. You are not leverage, he said carefully. Lena searched his face. But I am useful, she whispered. A pause. Too long. Then Adrian answered honestly. To them, that broke something in her. Not dramatically, quietly, like a thread snapping under tension it was never meant to hold. So I am part of this, she said. No, immediate, firm, but the contradiction only made her shake more. Adrian's gaze softened slightly, just slightly. You are not part of them, he said. A beat, then quieter. You are part of me keeping you alive. That sentence lingered. Too intimate, too loaded, too dangerous. Lena looked away first. Her voice was smaller now. I didn't ask for that. I know. Something in his tone shifted again. Almost regretful, almost tired of himself. A knock interrupted them. Urgent. One of his men entered quickly. Sir, there's movement again. Internal routes are compromised. We may have another leak. Adrian didn't look away from Lena. Find it, he said coldly. The man left immediately. Silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was fractured. Lena stared at the floor. I don't feel safe, she admitted quietly. The honesty surprised even her. Adrian didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was lower than before. You shouldn't feel safe, he said. She looked up sharply. His expression changed instantly. Not cold, not cruel, careful. I mean outside these walls, he clarified. Inside them, you are protected. A pause. Then softer. I would not allow otherwise. Something in that sentence hit differently. Not possession, not control, something closer to vow than statement. Lena swallowed. You say that like you can guarantee it. Adrian stepped closer again, this time slower. Intentional. His voice dropped. I do not guarantee many things. A beat. Then, but I guarantee that. The air between them tightened. Not fearfully. Something else. Something heavier. Lena's pulse shifted, because for the first time, it didn't feel like she was being held there. It felt like he was holding himself together around her. Like she was the thing he hadn't expected to matter. And didn't know how to stop protecting. Even if it ruined him. Velvet Vows and Bloodstained Promises. Chapter 10, Blood in the Walls, Light in the Ruin. Night fell too fast, like the mansion itself was holding its breath. Lena stood near the window, watching the grounds below. Security lights cut across the gardens in slow sweeps. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. This time, everyone was expecting it. That made it worse. Behind her, Adrian stood still. Not pacing, not speaking, just watching her like he was waiting for something he already feared. You should leave the window, he said quietly. Lena didn't turn. Another attack. A pause. Possibly. That single word carried too much weight. Lena finally faced him. You knew this would escalate. His jaw tightened. I knew it would not end quietly. That's not the same thing. Silence. Then Adrian stepped closer. Not invading. Not rushing. Just closing distance like gravity had decided it. You should be underground, he said. I should be at home, she shot back. Something flickered in his eyes. Not irritation. Something strained. I cannot undo where you are, he said quietly. That's your answer for everything. A pause. Yes. That honesty again. It always disarmed her more than lies would have. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the mansion. Red lights flashed in distant corridors. Immediate chaos. But controlled. Always controlled. Adrian moved instantly. Stay here, he ordered. Lena shook her head immediately. No. His gaze snapped to hers. Dangerous now. Not angry. Focused. Lena, I'm not hiding while your house burns around me. A beat. Then Adrian did something he never did. He hesitated. Just for a second. That was enough. The doors below exploded open. The sound echoed through the mansion like thunder breaking glass. Footsteps. Fast. Close. Adrian turned sharply. Now, he said, voice lower, you stay behind me or you don't stay alive. That was the first time he had said it like that. Not suggestion. Not protection. Truth. Lena moved. Immediately. Downstairs erupted into motion. Men shouted. Shadows collided. Adrian pulled her through a side corridor, moving faster now, controlled urgency replacing calm restraint. You have a safe exit route, he said sharply. I'm not leaving you, she replied without thinking. That made him glance at her. Just briefly. Something broke through the mask. Frustration. Fear. Something deeper. That is not a decision you get to make, he said. Another explosion shook the hall behind them. They stopped at a locked steel door. Adrian pressed his palm to the panel. It clicked open. Inside, a narrow passage. Dim. Old. Hidden. Lena froze slightly. This is planned. Yes. He didn't lie. He never lied. That was the worst part. They stepped inside. The noise outside dulled instantly. But not enough. Voices echoed through the mansion. Someone shouted Adrian's name. Not his men. Not loyal. Lena felt it instantly. Inside job, she whispered. Adrian nodded once. Cold. Final. Yes. They moved deeper into the passage. Intel. A voice came from behind them. Slow. Familiar. One of his men. But wrong. Too calm. I always wondered when you'd bring her down here. Adrian stopped immediately. Lena's stomach dropped. The man stepped into the dim light. Same uniform. Same insignia. But his eyes were empty of loyalty. Only ambition. You were predictable, the man said lightly. Protective men always hide their weaknesses too close. Lena's breath caught. Adrian didn't move. Not yet. You, Adrian said quietly. The man smiled. Me. Silence stretched. Then Adrian spoke again. So it was you. The traitor shrugged. Not just me. A pause. Then he looked at Lena. You didn't think she'd survive this world, did you? He said to Adrian. Bringing her in was sentimental. Something shifted in Adrian. Very slightly. Dangerously. The air changed. Lena felt it immediately. Adrian stepped forward half a step. And for the first time, his voice lost its calm edge. You involved her. The man smiled wider. We used her. That was it. Something snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Silently. Adrian moved. Fast. Too fast. Lena barely saw it. Only the aftermath. The traitor hit the wall hard. Sound echoed. Everything went still. Adrian stood over him. Breathing controlled, but barely. Don't, the man gasped, suddenly afraid now. You'll lose control. Adrian grabbed him by the collar. And for the first time, his voice shook, not from fear, from rage. She was never yours to touch. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. The man's expression changed instantly. He realized something. Too late. Adrian wasn't just angry. He wasn't just protective. He wasn't just in control. He was attached. Dangerously. Irrevocably. Adrian let go. The man collapsed. Not dead, but finished. Adrian didn't look at him again. He turned immediately to Lena. And for the first time since she met him, he looked unguarded. Not the Mafia heir. Not the monster. Just a man standing in ruin. You're shaking, he said quietly. Lena didn't answer. She couldn't. Adrian stepped closer. Slower now. Careful, like approaching something fragile. I told you, he said softly, I would keep you safe. Her voice barely came out. You lost control. A pause. Then, I did. Honest. No denial. He stood closer now. Close enough that she could see it clearly. The exhaustion. The fear. Not for himself. For her. I cannot do this without you in danger, he admitted quietly. That sentence changed everything. Lena swallowed. Then don't do it alone. Silence. His eyes locked on hers. Something in him cracked open fully now. No control left to hide behind. You should hate me, he said quietly. Lena shook her head once. I tried. A breath. Then softer. It didn't work. That broke him more than anything else. Adrian stepped forward, then stopped just short, like he was still afraid of himself. I am not safe for you, he said. Lena looked up at him. Neither is the world you pulled me into. Silence. Heavy. Final. Then, she stepped forward instead, closing the distance. Adrian didn't move, didn't stop her, didn't breathe properly. Lena looked up at him. You keep protecting me, she whispered, like I'm something you can lose. A pause. Her voice softened. But I think you already have me. That was the moment everything stopped. The mansion, the chaos, the war outside, even him. Adrian's hand lifted slowly, carefully, like asking permission without words. Lena didn't move away, and when he finally touched her, it wasn't violence, it wasn't control, it was restraint breaking into something gentler. Something real, something dangerous. I don't know how to stop this, he admitted quietly. Lena's answer was barely a whisper. Then don't. Outside, sirens grew louder. Inside, everything else disappeared. And for the first time in his world of blood and power, Adrian chose something he could not control. Her.